Hi, this is Tom Rule, the iPad guy, and this is the first installment in several videos on beginning newbie iPad questions that I'll often get. This will help you figure out how to use this thing, especially as if it's a new thing for you. So what we have here is my iPad. This is in a case. Your case may look differently, but a couple of things I wanted to point out. Number one, here's your home button, and this is how you get back to your desktop, for lack of a better word, and then your power button is right here, right there. So that's how you turn it on and off and that kind of thing. Right here's your camera. Your headphones or earbuds would plug in right here. On the back side, especially if you have one of these Griffin Survivor cases, you've got two flaps that open. Don't pull these off. They're a pain to get back on, and they do help protect. That's for your speaker, and it just pops back in. And this other one is for your camera, and they just rotate out of the way. So not a good idea to lose them, although many people do, because it just helps protect, and it keeps dust from getting in there. And you can see down here at the bottom, if I can get it open, there we go, headphone jack. So that's what the back side of these look like. And then right there is a switch, and it also has a red section which the camera is not picking up. Alright, so if the machine has never been turned on, what you'll do is press the power button over here and just hold it down until you get the Apple logo. Mine's already obviously running, so I hit the home button and then slide it to start, and this is the desktop. So once you've got it here, the way you turn it off is by holding down the button, and boom. Now that puts it to sleep. If I wanted to totally take it down, do a hard reboot in Computerese, you hold it down, and then eventually you get this. It says slide to power off, and it's red, although the camera is not picking that up. And at the bottom it says cancel. So you just slide it off. It does a little dance, and then it will power all the way down. That's helpful sometimes if the thing's just acting weird. Typical computers, they like to be restarted once in a while. You may, on occasion, come up with your machine and it has an iTunes logo, an arrow and a cable and an iTunes logo. At that point, that means that your machine has been put into reset mode, and don't do anything with it. Don't try to plug it into iTunes. Bring it in, because if you try to put it into iTunes, you very well may do weird things to it, and you might lose everything on it. So backing up your data is the subject of a different video, so take a look for that. These are apps, and I've got 4 or 5 screens of them. You can see all I'm doing is scooting back and forth. At the bottom, I've got 4 dots. That tells me I have 4 screens. Here's screen number 2, screen number 3, and screen number 4. Students cannot add apps on their own. That's done by us at the school. They cannot delete apps, though, either. A fully charged iPad will last, we're told, 8 to 9 hours, and I'm pretty much been able to get that much. The downside of that long battery life is it also takes a long time to get it fully charged. So you do want to let it charge all night. That's just a good idea. That way you're walking around with a fully charged iPad. There are limits on the number of times it will charge. It's thousands, but that's full charges. So, charging it 10 times from 90% to 100% only counts as one charge. So always a good idea just to keep it charged up, because you never know when you're going to need it. Internet. Or how do you find an app? One of the ways you do it is swipe down an empty part of the screen, and it says search iPad. So you can search for anything. I'm going to search for settings, and it searches for contacts and mail if you've got your email set up and all that. So I hit settings. Settings, you can do a lot of things on here. Wi-Fi is how you're going to get on the internet. So I click on Wi-Fi, and this will show up all the networks that are available for this iPad. At home, your wireless network will show up here. If you want to join a different one, you can just select it, and then you will be asked to type in your password and all that kind of stuff. Hey, so that's how you would get on the internet. Is at home, it was just select whatever network. Now at school, you will be on, if it's a student, MDS student, you will have to log on about once a week. And what's supposed to happen is you click on it, and a page will pop up and ask you for your MDS number and your password. Sometimes it doesn't automatically come up. At that point, you just try to go to a website, and usually it will kick it out. One way to tell that you're on the net is this little icon right here. So if you see that, you know that you're on a network of some kind, and then you can tell in this list under Settings, Wi-Fi. You generally want Bluetooth on as well. Next step, how to set up an Apple ID. Now these are things you need to know when you're first setting up. You click on iCloud, and generally we will have done this as part of the setup procedure at the beginning of the school year, but sometimes you have to reset it up. iCloud and Apple ID is good for setting up backups and Find My iPad and other things. It will also do backups. So you can see I've got iCloud backup set up here, and I can have it back up now, and I'm using half of my storage. And you can also manage your storage and see how many backups you got happening and what you've got backed up, and back up all of this other sort of stuff. And iCloud's kind of very handy if you're trying to get your data back that was on this one. Let's say this one, your iPad is defective and I have to replace it with a different one. If we back it up to iCloud, then I can put that same data back onto a similar device, a replacement iPad, assuming everything works. You know, these are computers. But at some point you will have to set up an Apple ID to make that happen. And you can see that here. Generally we're going to be using your MDS email address and password to set that up. But there you can go to tech.mounttosales.net, and there are details on how to do that. How do you update your operating system? On occasion, Apple will update the OS, and generally I suggest waiting on that. But if you go to General, Software Update, and you can always email me and ask, hey, is this a good idea to let this happen? Minor ones, probably not a big deal, go ahead, but it will come up and say there is a software update available. Generally a good idea to do that if it's minor, like 7.0.4 to 7.0.5. That would be fine, but if we're going from 7 to 8, I would wait. Let us check it out at school, make sure it's not going to create more problems than it solves. And sometimes it just does that. I have a lot of questions about printing. Printing is a little tricky. Now, if you are on campus, let's find Notability and let it fire up. If you are on campus, you can automatically print. We have on the network printing already set up. So I'm viewing a thing here, and I can click this icon here in Notability. Generally, that's how you get it out of an app, that icon right there. You can see I got a bunch of options, but I can hit print. So if I hit print the note, working, and then I have to select a printer. And if you're on the network, the printers you have available will show up in a list. Now, if you're on the student network, it will obviously be a much smaller list. You select the printer, and then you hit print. And so on campus, you will automatically do that. Now, if you want to set up printing at home, you have a couple of options. One is to get a wireless-enabled printer, a printer that already talks wireless, but that does something called AirPrint. If it says it does AirPrint on the box, then when you select print, it should show up on that list automatically. The other option, if you have a printer hooked up to a computer, you can set AirPrint up on that computer, Mac or Windows, and this can be done free or very cheaply. Again, check the website tech.mounttosales.net, that's TECH, and do a search for AirPrint, and there's an article already there on how to do that. have a question sometimes about how to set up the password. That's under Settings, General, and then Passcode Lock. Now, so require passcode immediately, and then simple passcode versus complex. It's your option there, but let me warn you, don't forget what it is, because you may lock yourself out of it, and that actually has happened. Erase data on this iPad after 10 failed passcode attempts. Do not turn that on, because if some of your, quote, friends get a hold of your iPad, or I have had siblings try to guess passcodes and completely disable iPads. So generally not a happy situation when that happens. Also, how do you find out when you are about to run out of room? That's under General, Settings, General, Usage. These are 16 gig iPads, and at the top, 991 meg available. My iPad is almost full. Time for me to do some house cleaning. Generally, you want to leave yourself some room because, for example, if I wanted to shoot an iMovie right now or work in GarageBand, I don't have a whole lot of room available, so I need to clear out some stuff. And you can see right now, I've got 1.5 gig in iBooks and 1.5 gig in Photos and Camera. So I probably need to go clean that out. I got almost a gig in GarageBand and Podcasts. So that's where a lot of my stuff is taking up room. And then I have also a lot of questions about how do you clean the screens. It's yucky. My suggestion, get a chamois cloth, or if you're French, chamois. Just one of these fuzzy cloths. And you can use contact cleaner. You can just breathe on it and rub it off, and that will clean it up significantly. These cases do have a protective screen on it, so you can't really tell. Mine has a scratch right about here, but you can see it if I turn it off, I think right there. So that scratch right there is not on the iPad itself, it's on the outer screen. So it's not that big a deal, and obviously when I've got it on, I can't see the scratch, so it doesn't bother me. How do you flip between apps, and how do you turn apps off? If I click the home button twice, dump, I get a list of all the apps that are paused. So I can easily flip back and forth. There's BBC News, Flipboard, Mail, Teach apps, and all that. And how do I keep them from running? I just slide them up, and that puts them in quit mode, I guess, for lack of a better term. Is that a big deal? If you've got 30 or 40 apps running, and I have seen that happen, then yeah, it can slow your machine down. It can get a little cantankerous. So generally a good idea to do that every once in a while. So there's some just beginning things about the iPad, and you can look for the next video in the series.